Welcome to the November Ambassador led webinar. I am your host, Tisha Poncio. I'm the lead of education and community at Smart and Lumio, and I am so excited to see so many of you from around the globe joining us. So just know it is not lost on me to know that it is different times all over the world, but you are still joining us. Here's a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure you're following Lumio Social and at Smart Tech on all of the social media channels. Make sure that you're following along on YouTube. I'll put the links in the chat. And also remember, and you may have to remind me, sometimes I get really excited about our guests, but the survey link will be at the very end of the session with this ambassador, and you will get your certificate. And I just want to shout out a couple of people before I intro our guest. I see Matt is from Houston. Matt, so good to see you again. Lisa from South Africa. I love seeing you in the chat. Helen from Edmonton and Kim from New Brunswick and Alabama. Jennifer, so good to see you. I saw some people from Croatia and Finland and Ontario. Yes, Vicky has asked the question, will this be recorded and shared with you? Yes, absolutely. And here's what I want you to know. Anytime you register for a webinar, with Smart and Lumio, you will always receive that recording. You also can check a couple of days later and we will have the recording up on YouTube, and you can then go back and rewatch at your pace. If you're like me, I like to go watch videos 2x speed, but you can go back and forth as much as you want. And then also share with your colleagues, with your personal learning network, those that are in your school, those that maybe don't know the power of Lumio. You can share that YouTube link with them straight to their phone, and they can watch from their relaxing couch at home. So without further ado, I want to introduce our November ambassador presenter to the stage. Welcome, Dr. Devin Caldwell. It's incredible to have you joining me this month. How are you?
Good morning, Tisha. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well. It's fall study break from university. So instead of being in cold Manitoba, I'm in beautiful Victoria, BC, leading this webinar. So I'm so excited to see all of the people from all over the world. I see a colleague of mine, Andy McKeel from Winnipeg here, plus people from Scotland, Croatia, Alabama. So thank you so much for joining.
When you said that, it gave me chills actually. I just want to shout out the global community here. And if you have any friends that are in different parts of the world that are teacher friends, make sure you're sharing Devin's webinar with them. What I would love for all of you to do while Devin is going to get started and we're going to share her screen and everything, but what I would love for you all to do in the chat, you've already told us where you're from. What I would love for you to also do is tell us what is your role, your title. Maybe tell us something that you are maybe celebrating right now, because you've all been in it. You've been in the weeds with your students. What is something that's going well, and what is something that you really want to learn from Devin today? And questions, all the questions you have, go in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. Devin, are you ready to present?
I'm ready to present. I'm really excited to lead this webinar. This is a brand new one for me.
Absolutely. Okay, well, you all should see Devin's screen, and I'm going to mute myself, but I'm going to be here with you, Devin, and we can go over some of the questions, and I'll keep track of that for you, but we're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, thanks so much, Tisha. So first of all, Tisha has shared the teacher share link to my file. So you are going to get all of these slides. But right now, I would really love for you to join as students if you haven't done so already. So there's two ways of doing that in Lumio. You can join by scanning the QR code that you're seeing, or you can just open up a browser window, type in lumioclass.com, and then enter my class code, which is 482889. And probably this link that you see just below that is already in the chat, would be my guess. So please join my class if you haven't done so already.
Yes, I've put that on the screen for all of you. I've also put it in the chat, and I am now officially a student of yours, Devin. I'm in your class with you.
Okay, so I'm able to see on the left-hand side how many people have joined my class. So we're at 19 right now, 20. The number's rapidly climbing. So take a moment to join my class so you can participate in the activities. So today's webinar is called Higher Impact Teaching, Lumio for High School and Beyond. And as Tisha mentioned, my name's Devin Caldwell, and I teach at two very opposite ends of the spectrum. I've been like a lifetime kindergarten and early years teacher. And right now I'm teaching nursery and kindergarten at Shanupiwakpa Dakota Nation in Southwest Manitoba. And then I'm also a university instructor at Brandon University, where I'm teaching in the Faculty of Education. So I'm working with teacher candidates. I'd love to connect with you on social media. You can find me on Instagram at kgeducation.ca. I'm on Blue Sky and X as India0309. My email is there, hello@devincaldwell.com if you have any questions after the webinar. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. So I've been in education for a really long time. I finished a 4-year Bachelor of Education in early years at Brandon University. I followed that up with a master's degree in special education or inclusive education. And most recently, I completed a PhD at the University of Victoria, which is like my favorite Canadian city. I'm always so happy to be here. And I studied curriculum and instruction, early childhood education. And I investigated how and why kindergarten to grade two teachers integrate technology in their classroom practices. Okay, so I'd like to learn a little bit more about you, conduct a little bit of formative assessment to guide my session today. And this response tool, I'm going to talk about it more, but I use it so much in my work with adult learners. So my first question is, what is your role in education? You can see that I'm able to monitor the progress. So I've got 51 people in my class, and nearly half of them have already responded to this question. I'm also able to bring up live results. So I guess I did not guess very well when I was putting up options for what your role in education could be, because I've got a lot of people falling under other. But these live results are so helpful for getting real-time data when you're working with your students. I'll just wait one more minute before I go on to the next question.
You know what I love about Other, Devin, is that it really does tell a story, right? Because I think all of the attendees here, as I'm looking at all of the titles and roles, it's so interesting because I find just like you, teachers are across the spectrum. And so sometimes it's hard to find the one title that works because you
Mhm.
all are doing so many things, right? Other, yes. Stephanie says other is technology integration specialist, which actually was what I was for 13 years. So I would always
Mhm.
choose other. There is one question, Devin. Helen wants to know, is there a limit on how big your class can be when using Lumio?
I don't know. I've never hit a limit anyway. This would
Y-
probably be the biggest class I've ever had. In
I was,
university, I have 36 students, and that's not a
mhm.
problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've hit the limit. It's definitely a challenge for all of you to see if you can hit a limit with Lumio, but really the more the merrier, right? So we have some others. Erin says she's a director of digital teaching and learning. So you do have some incredible audience members here. And I love this. Linda is working with autistic teenagers as well.
So hopefully there will be something for everyone in this session. And a lot of what I'm describing that I do at the university level, I also do with my very youngest learners. Okay, other question that I wanted to get some responses to today is, what is your level of proficiency in using Lumio? So I'm able to see that 17 people are just getting started and learning the basics. But then we've got 11 experts. I can also switch how that data is displayed for me into a pie chart or circle. Okay, thanks everyone for taking a minute to share your responses with me. Okay, so today's session is all about how I'm using Lumio in higher ed settings. As I mentioned earlier, I've been a lifetime early years teacher, but I've also been teaching at the post-secondary level for the last 10 years as a sessional instructor. And I've always been someone who absolutely loves educational technology. And I believe that regardless of what course I'm teaching, it's really an important part of my role to expose students to as many different tech tools that can be really, really useful and transformative in their practice. So I've always integrated technology alongside whatever I've been doing. But as I transitioned into the higher ed setting, I definitely noticed some different challenges for what I experienced with my young learners in kindergarten. And I'm going to use the flip out template to share those challenges with you. So this is a really easy to use template that is in the Lumio library. If you just press the plus button and under games, flip out will come up, and it's very easy to program. So let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so I have 6 challenges that I'm going to share with you. I believe you can flip these cards over on your end, or I can flip them over for you. So, one challenge is remote student participation. So, even though right now I'm teaching live synchronous classes where all of my students are like with me in person and I'm teaching live to them, inevitably, like 1 or 2 students are ill or away and they're joining via Zoom or some other video calling platform. And being able to include my students in kind of more of a blended learning environment used to be a big challenge in the past. Another challenge when I was using all of these different tools to accomplish so many different purposes with my adult learners, they had to have so many logins and passwords. And that always just really slowed down our learning when people were struggling to connect with the tool or the platform that I wanted them to use. Another challenge, I found that even though, like, very much in my classroom practice, in like the earlier setting, I'm very much student centered and a proponent of pedagogical practices like project based learning or inquiry based learning. No matter how hard I tried, I still felt that my university level teaching was just too teacher led and too much lecturing for my teaching style. Another challenge that my students experienced, as did I, is I would always read on my course, like on my course feedback forms, course evaluations from my students, that they were tired of all of the different tools and switching back and forth and always felt confused over what they were supposed to be doing. So my students definitely experienced some tool and platform fatigue. Another challenge was conducting formative assessment and getting real-time data. I could conduct formative assessment, but often I wouldn't have a chance to look at it until the class was over. So I just didn't have access to that real-time data. And then also at times, disengagement and lack of participation. Because I've often been teaching in the public school system, the university would slot me into classes to accommodate me. But that slot would be the last slot of the day after my students had been in class all day. And their levels of engagement and energy were really low. So those are some of the challenges that I was experiencing in my post-secondary teaching. And next, I'm going to share with you the solutions that Lumio has provided for me. So I use Lumio as my one platform. That's what my students log into at the beginning of every class. They join my class, and that's what we use for absolutely everything. And these are the different ways that I use Lumio that I'm going to share with you today. So, how I use Lumio for formative assessment to boost student engagement, participation, and students' ability to ask questions when they're with you in class. I'm activating my students' prior knowledge, making our learning more interactive and engaging, giving students opportunities to collaborate in different configurations, whether they're all in the room with me or some learners are learning from home. And then just, of course, the sheer flexibility in the delivery options. So I can teach remote asynchronous, remote synchronous, in person, and blended learning experiences all using one platform, which is Lumio. Lastly, my students can join from any device. They don't need to have a laptop. They can also join from a tablet. Okay, so before Lumio, I was creating PowerPoint slides for every class. As I mentioned, there are many tools for students to learn how to use, many logins for them to remember. And as a result, sometimes my classes just felt like there was like a lack of flow. And also, like my teaching was all synchronous and in real time because I just generally didn't have the tools to create those blended learning environments. So after Lumio, I'm just using one platform. Everything we use is in one place, which makes things so much easier for my students and me. It's very easy to access just by going to lumioclass.com and entering the code or scanning the QR code. It's consistent. My students know when they arrive in class, this is what they need to do because we do access the same things every day. And then those flexible delivery options. So I can include students who are learning from home. In January, I'm taking on a new course at Nipissing University where I'm actually going to be teaching remote asynchronous, and I'll be relying on Lumio for that too.
Devin,
So
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second because I love, first of all, you have such a wide range from kindergarten all the way to pre-service teachers. So I think that's a really incredible perspective. Someone is asking in the chat, just because you mentioned that Lumio is accessible on any device, would you, in your experience, say that Lumio is more effective with an iPad or a laptop, or do you see no difference?
it depends on the age of the learner. When I am working with my little ones, I always would choose an iPad just because it's so easy for them to just scan the QR code and be in the learning activity. And then there's the whole like the touch screen, which is just so much more accessible for young learners. With my university students, I do prefer them using a laptop just because we're often going to be doing a lot more keyboarding. However,
Mhm.
lots of my university students bring a tablet and like an Apple Pencil or stylus, and they write right on the Lumio slides, and that works well too. So when you're working with adult learners, it's more personal preference. Chromebooks work well too because Lumio is completely web-based. I'm assuming that each student needs an account. No, students do not need accounts, which is one of the best things ever, especially when you're dealing with young students. So, like, all you need to do is to have my class code and you're in. You do not need the student login. And then I see, what about the phone? Yes, you can use a phone, but what you're able to do is fairly limited. Like you're able to view the slides,
Mhm.
follow along, click things, but in terms of like keyboarding or collaborating with other people, it would be more difficult with a phone. It's possible.
I love that. You've hit on all the questions. Andy does have something. I asked them actually while you're presenting, what would they add to the before and after list? And Andy says he would add stability. Lumio is a robust platform that just works. So I think that's really a great testimonial. And Matt has some things to say. You guys make sure that you are connecting with each other in the chat. You guys are a wealth of information. Devin, I'm going to let you continue because this slide is one of my favorites.
Okay, so first of all, I want to begin with the disclaimer that I'm not throwing any shade on any of these tools or platforms because I love them and I've used them for many, many years. So before, I was always using Padlet to be like that digital online bulletin board space, and I love Padlet. But now I use Shout It Out in Lumio or entrance and exit tickets. That way, we're not going out to a different tool. I will mention at this point, though, you can put hyperlinks in Lumio for students to click, and that would take them to the other tool. So Padlet, I've replaced it with Shout It Out, which I'll show you in a minute, and entrance and exit tickets. We used to do a lot of work in a shared Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document. Now we use a whole class whiteboard or a group workspace, which I will show you in a little bit. I used to use Socrative, Kahoot, or Wayground for quizzes and formative assessment. Now I use Response and Lumio, just like how we started off, so I could learn more about you. And then for more game-based play, I use Monster Quiz or Team Quiz. Before, I would go onto the YouTube platform to show a video. Now I embed my Lumio videos in my slides, and that removes the ads, which is the best thing ever, especially working with young learners because sometimes those YouTube ads are non-appropriate and they're distracting regardless of the age of the student. Okay, so hopefully you're listening and thinking like, oh, this really could be a solution for me. But I've got like years worth of slides and teaching materials that I've already created, and I really don't want to start from scratch on a brand new platform. So I was the exact same because right now I'm teaching social studies methods, and I've been teaching that class since 2019. So I mean, I've got slides that I reuse every time. Of course, I modify them, but I've got the structure of the course developed. So again, with Lumio, you don't need to start from scratch. You can import your existing PowerPoint slides, Google Slides, PDFs right into Lumio and then add in the interactive activities. so you can use your previously created materials. All you do is click import and then locate those materials. So when you are creating content, as I mentioned, always start off with your existing content, such as PDF slides, PowerPoints, Google Slides. If you used a lot of Smart Notebook, you can import Smart Notebook activities into there too. So always start off with what you already have and then modify it and add the cool activities too. If you're starting from scratch, I seldom create right in Lumio. Often I'll create in Canva and then I'll export it to Lumio. Like if the group here is like any other teachers I've ever worked with, like we all love Canva. Canva can make everything so beautiful. The slides I'm sharing with you today are created in Canva and then I sent them over to Lumio. And in Canva, you can just go to the apps button and search for Lumio, and there's a Lumio app. Then you just log in with your Lumio account. And when you make something in Canva, then you just click on send it to Lumio and it sends it over to Lumio. So that's what I did today.
Devin, I want to
Also,
stop there because I don't know that everybody knows that that is an option, right? We have a lot of Canva lovers across our community of users. And I think going back to that, when you're creating in Canva, or if you have something you've already created in Canva, a lot of times I will add in some blank slides in my Canva. And then, like you said, go into the add to Lumio button. And then it, as if it magically appears in my Lumio account. And then I can go add in all those interactive pieces. So, again, I just want to hit on that because I know a lot of you in the chat are probably already utilizing Canva, but the same thing for PowerPoint. As a veteran teacher, I know that I had a ton of different created documents that I was updating throughout the years. And I think this is a genius way to utilize it so you aren't starting from scratch, right?
yeah, that's so important because no one has time to like recreate the wheel all over again. So, as I mentioned earlier, you can embed YouTube videos, which takes the ads out, but you can also embed other third-party content. So you see right here, there's YouTube, Desmos. These are simulations that I don't use in my teaching. They might be a really good fit for yours. And then this embedded content button. So, for example, if I've created a book in Book Creator that I then want to share with my students, I can embed it right into my Lumio slides. And what that means is it's a really seamless teaching experience where you are not clicking between different tabs and windows. Everything is in one place, which I really love. So as I mentioned, YouTube videos with no ads. All you do is click on that YouTube button, copy and paste the URL for the video, and then it looks like this. You just click the play button and that YouTube video plays with no ads right on your Lumio slide. Um, Talking about working with young children as well. When we are doing inquiry-based or project-based learning and students want to conduct their own research on topics, I will set up a bunch of different Lumio slides with YouTube videos, and then students are able to independently move between those different slides on their iPads and conduct research on whatever it is we're studying. So it's a really safe way to bring a variety of content for your learners. Okay. Sometimes though, you do need to start from scratch. I'm teaching a brand new course this year at Brandon University. It's ELA methods. I've never taught it before. And even though I've received great support from other faculty members, I'm still creating my own course from the ground up. So Lumio does have an AI function called AI Assist. And I was really curious to see if it would work at the post-secondary level. Like it aligns with different standards for different provinces and states and countries. But of course, we know that there's no like real like, government mandated curriculum for university courses. So I wanted to share this prompt with you. I was developing a lesson on phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, and phonics. And it was like feeling like a daunting task because that's a really big topic. So this is my prompt. So I clicked on AI Assistant Lumio and I typed in develop a lesson to teach teacher candidates about the difference between phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, and phonics. The lesson should take about 60 minutes to complete. You can see that I selected the grade post-secondary and my language was English, and then I click generate. First of all, it creates an outline for you of all of the different activities that we'll use. And then if you're happy with that, you click on to the next step and it develops the lesson for you on Lumio slides, complete with like slides that are like sharing about the content and then different interactive activities. So the lesson it made me wasn't like absolutely perfect, but it probably like cut my prep time in half. because it gave me a foundation to work from. And then I went in and edited that activity. I modified the different interactive things that they created for me. And I had a really great lesson that I was able to share with my students. So AI Assist makes generating lessons from the ground up so much easier.
Devin, I have a question for you on that. So, as you're working with kindergarten all the way through pre-service teachers, are you teaching your pre-service teachers how to utilize AI for lesson design, and what are some of the conversations that come up around that with them?
Oh, yeah, you bet I am. Actually, one of our assignments is using an AI tool of their choice to develop a lesson, and then they have to critique the lesson and then reprompt AI, and then take the lesson that AI creates, and then they have to enhance it. So we do have lots of conversations around using AI. I feel like I would be crazy not to address that topic with my students and also teach them how to use AI effectively because we all know like teachers are crazy busy. And if there's good tools out there that can streamline their workflow, I definitely want to be the one who's guiding my students in their use. I
Absolutely.
also do like a Lumio lesson plan assignment where students have to create their own Lumio lesson that they'll use when they go out student teaching. And I do that in both my social studies methods and ELA methods.
I think that's fantastic. And there was some questions in the chat. I'm going to keep sharing this user voice link, though. I shared it with Matt. But if you have any suggestions as you're using the Lumio AI Assist, please make sure that you're giving feedback. Our product team is watching that. I'm happy to take your feedback as well. If you want to email me, I'll pop my email in the chat. But as you are working through some of these things Devin's talking about, we want to hear your feedback so that we can continue to improve the platform for you and your students.
Okay, and as I mentioned, Lumio's got flexible delivery options, whether you're asynchronous, synchronous, blended. So once you've created your Lumio lesson, you just pass your mouse over it and it gives you three options: start new, assign new, or edit the file. So right now, since we're in a synchronous learning experience together, I clicked start new and I chose teacher paste so that I'm able to guide you through the slides. Like at least I think I did. Yes, it's teacher paste. So that way I'm in control of how we're advancing through the slides. I could also choose student paste and then you'd be able to click through my slides whenever you wanted to. If I want to do something that's asynchronous, I put assign new. And then I share that link with my students and they're able to access it at any point to complete the learning activity. So if I've done an asynchronous learning experience with my students, then I find those results in class sessions and I click on it and then I just review it and I can go through and look at all of my students' responses with their names attached. So that's under class sessions if you've done an asynchronous learning experience by assigning it to them. So I love just the flexibility in how my students can access learning. Okay. So I'm really curious about when you're working with learners, what is your delivery method? Are you live in person with your learners? Are you live online? Are you online asynchronous or are you other? And I realize like that this will not apply to everyone given the big mix we have here today. We're going to use a whole class whiteboard, which is everyone on the same slide together at the same time. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So I put a penguin on there because penguins are my favorite animals. And I have infinite flown the penguin, meaning you can drag off that penguin as many times as you want. So if you please drag a penguin over to what describes you, that would be great. You also could click on the A and you could type something for me. So if the things I provided on this slide don't match you, you can type for me what is you on this bare space on our slide. Also, if you would rather do something different than a penguin, if you click here, you can choose a different sticker because there's lots of different stickers. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of us are live in person. I see Lumio lessons as homework, live online, online asynchronous, and then I see other. Live but use Lumio for parts of instruction, The majority of my classes are in person, but I use live streaming to allow those who can't make it in to have access. Yes, that's like me too. Like I'm teaching in person live at Brandon University, but I allow my students to join remotely if they need to.
You know what I
I
love, Devin, on this whiteboard? I don't know where it went, but I loved that someone was typing test because this is a great way for those of you who are new to this particular engagement feature to really test it out. Like Devin said, you don't have to just use the penguin, but you can type on there and see how it works in a safe place. This is really fun, and I know I remember Devin that you love penguins.
I do. Okay, so it looks like the majority of us are teaching live in person, but some of us are offering other options for students who can't attend in person. If you are online asynchronous, I'd love to connect with you because for the first time ever, I'm going to be teaching online asynchronous in January, and I'm really excited about it. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, so formative assessment. Formative assessment is something that it's really important for every educator, but I find at the university level, there's so much I need to teach my students, like ELA methods, like that is just such an enormous topic. We only have a limited amount of class time. So I don't want to waste my time or waste my students' time on topics that they already have some familiarity with. And I use like different formative assessment tools from Lumio all the time to find out where my students are at in their understanding. And then I adjust my pace and learning activities accordingly. But often I make those pivots like on the fly because Lumio is providing me with that real time assessment data. So let me show you what that might look like in my university classroom. So two of my favorites are shout it out and response. And you've already experienced response at the beginning of our session today. So there's also AI assist for response questions. So today I was asking you more polling questions. But if you are actually like creating like content kind of multiple choice questions, you can use Lumio AI assist. So right here, I chose question type, multiple choice. They don't have post-secondary on the drop down here. So I just chose grade 12, 5 questions, English language, my topic or prompt. Develop multiple choice questions that assess teacher candidates' knowledge of project-based learning in social studies. And then I chose the Manitoba standards and click generate. And let me show you like some of the questions that Lumio came up with for me. Here's one. How should a teacher design a community immigration project to maximize authentic learning? And then the choices, assign textbook chapter summaries, partner with local immigrant services, show documentary videos only, create fictional immigration stories. So that was using Lumio's AI Assist to find out what my students knew about project-based learning. And I found that really, really helpful. And of course, you can go in and edit their suggestions. So sometimes I'm checking my students' pedagogical knowledge about something. Other times I'm polling them. So as I mentioned earlier, one of their assignments is creating a Lumio lesson to teach phonological awareness or phonics skills. So I was checking in with my students. What do you need to successfully complete your Lumio lesson? And right away, I find out, oh, look, 64% of my students would like me to demonstrate how I develop a lesson. So that tells me that's what we need to spend a chunk of our time on the next day. So yes, this informs my instruction, but then I also use it for other things. Like I might pull my students for like a mental health check-in or a temperature check-in. I often will do it to learn more about my students, like where are you student teaching? Is it rural or urban or northern? And other times, like I'll throw in a poll just for fun to boost engagement. Okay, Shout It Out is one of my favorite tools that I use every single class and every single presentation. And Shout It Out is very similar to Padlet, and that it's like kind of a digital bulletin board where students can pin their answers. So sometimes Shout It Out is just one big space. You can see I've set this one up in columns. So after we went through the course outline and I presented my students with like the different criteria for the assignments they'd be doing throughout the term, I said, ask me some questions about these assignments. And then I created 4 columns. So the oral narrative assignment, the AI assignment, the outdoor learning assignment, and the play-based learning assignment. And then students were able to post their questions in the appropriate column. And then I could address them right then and there. So you can see that there were no questions about the outdoor learning assignment or the play-based learning assignment. Since all of my learners are proficient readers and writers, I have the text contributions turned on Shout It Out, but you also can have image contributions, which is really great for young learners. So with my kindergarten kiddos, like I might say, find something in the classroom that begins with the letter G, and my students will go around with their iPads and photograph things that begin with the G or the J sound and submit those to our class Shout It Out. So you can use Shout It Out with pictures or words.
Devin, I just have to shout that out, actually. I'm going to verbally
Yeah.
shout that out on your shout it out. That is such a great idea. I was a secondary teacher and never actually thought to create this type of Q&A essentially for them, right? To be able to go ask the questions right then and there. And so that I can see that and capture their questions and then make it clearer maybe for the next class that comes through, right? So that is an incredible use of Shout It Out. Love that.
Well, I think we all kind of know that if you say to a room full of students, who has any questions about the assignment,
Yes.
is just going to be silent. Whereas if
Yes.
I say, take a minute and talk at your tables about these assignments, and then ask your questions with the shout it out, I find I get a lot more engagement from my students.
Absolutely, because don't you think it really serves the students that are maybe afraid of drawing attention to themselves, or they need more processing time to really even think about the assignment you just gave them? I know for me, it would take me probably a day before I would come back to that and say, you know what, Dr. Caldwell, I'm not sure on this. I'm not sure I can do this, right? It creates that
Mhm.
conversation. So I think it's an incredible use case.
And one other thing about shout it out is you can have student names attached or no student names, so you can make it anonymous. So in situations like that where I want students to feel really free to ask questions and I'm not evaluating their responses, I always turn it to anonymous so no one knows who's asked the question. Okay, another form of formative assessment that I love that's in Lumio is the exit ticket. So if you click the plus button in Lumio, questioning and reflection, you see right here there is exit ticket. And they just have a very generic prompt at the top, but you can unlock it and edit the text and customize the prompt. So this was an exit ticket from our phonological awareness and phonics learning activity, where I asked students to explain what they learned about phonological awareness and phonics. And I did this as an individual handout, meaning every single student had their own copy of this. Then I was able to review their responses with their names attached. And then I could decide how to proceed in my next class based on my students' knowledge of phonological awareness and phonics. With my young learners, I would often have my kindergarten kids draw what they learned about the topic or use the audio recording. So Lumio has really like rudimentary drawing tools, but my kindergarten students use them really, really well. So often they would draw what they had learned about a topic, and then they would click attach audio and record their voice sharing what they had learned. So even though I don't draw on those accessibility features as much at the university level, they were something that I used a great deal with young learners, as well as in my role as a resource teacher. So attach audio and the drawing tools really can make learning more accessible too.
Devin, I think this is actually a really great point. As you're talking about the audio piece and the accessibility piece to that, Yvette has actually asked, what can Lumio offer for neurodivergent kids, especially those that use alternative augmentative devices? I am going to put some things in the chat, but I'm just going to rave about this for a second. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do last year when I joined Lumio and Smart was to present research that Smart did with the University of Melbourne, specifically on 36 recommendations for teachers and administrators on how both Smart and Lumio support neurodivergent learners in your classroom. So Yvette, I'm going to put that link in the chat, but I would love to talk to you more about that. So feel free to email me. We'll hop on a call and really talk through that.
And Tisha, you might want to connect the person who asked that question with Rachel in Toronto. She did an amazing Lumio Palooza session on how she uses Lumio in her developmental kindergarten classroom. And a lot of it was around communication. And
Absolutely.
That's on your
Yes.
Lumio channel as a YouTube link.
It is, and I will send you that link, Eva. If you will email me, I will get you all of those resources. And one of the things, as I think many of you are ambassadors, if you're not, we're going to give you that opportunity. But one of the things I want to do is bring all of you together so that you have each other to kind of lean on in the way that Devin is really talking about. Rachel is a great resource. Devin's a great resource. There are a lot of people out there that are going to support you, Eva, as you are working with those students.
Okay, so as I've been modeling throughout the presentation, there's different ways that you can use Lumio with your students. Students can work independently, like through an individual handout. Then students can also work collaboratively in real time or asynchronously with their peers. So I'm going to show you some of the different ways you can do that. Okay, so one way, you can choose the lesson pacing and convert activities on the fly. So if you just click where it says 45 in the people, right away we get lesson pacing. So as I shared before, I'm on teacher pacing right now, meaning I'm the one who controls the slides. I could switch to student pacing while we're in the activity. We also see that this has come up, convert this page to an activity. So if I wanted to make this an individual handout that each of you would get your own copy and you can engage with, I could click that. Group workspace, which we're going to do in a little bit, or a whole class whiteboard where everyone is working on the same slide. So that's one way to convert your activities is just by clicking right there. Okay. Another way is when you're actually developing the activity. So when you're in edit mode, there's a magic wand in the upper right corner. If you click the magic wand, you can convert your page to individual handout, group workspace, or whole class whiteboard. If you forget to convert it to an individual handout, all of your students will see it on their devices, but they won't be able to do anything with it other than look at it, and you'll know you forgot to convert it. And then you'll just want to click right here and click individual handout if you're actually presenting the lesson. So in individual handout, that's when every student gets their own copy and they're working on it all by themselves. So this is just an example from my ELA methods class where I asked students to develop a text set on a topic or a theme of their choice. So they were able to copy and paste images and then as well type what their text set was about. So this is what an individual handout would look like when everyone gets their own copy and works on it on their own. And then their name is attached to it and you are able to see who did what by reviewing it after or reviewing it in real time too. I actually had kind of a funny experience where some of my students were out of the room teaching a live online lesson for Global Read Aloud to a class in Park West School Division. It's like a little partnership I've set up. So the rest of my students were back in the room working on Lumio activities. So I had my device with me. So I just went into Lumio and just checked to see what my students were doing. And as students will do, they were like being silly, and some people like someone had written a swear word on the slide. I was like, oh my goodness, are we high school or university? And they didn't know that I was following along and watching what they were doing in real time. And I just typed on one slide, your teacher is watching, and everything just stopped. Everything was erased, and it was quite a
That's
good joke
that's
that
an
we laughed about for a
incredible,
while.
right, an incredible classroom management tool. I don't hear a lot of people say that, but I think that is an incredible example how Lumio can support classroom management. I put in the chat, Devin, and I'm not sure that you knew this. A little birdie told me that individual handout is one of the most popular ways that our users are using Lumio. And Kaylin is saying it's awesome for Edu protocols. If anybody is a fan of those, Kaylin, we would love for you to add to the chat. Let us know some ways that you're using that. But that is a great story, Devin. Please continue to share that with our team too.
Yeah, so when you're doing individual handouts, group workspaces, you are able to check in real time what is happening on each individual student's screen, which is very, very useful. Okay, group workspace. So group workspace takes everyone that is in your Lumio lesson. So right now I have 42 of you, and then divides them into teams. So how many teams would you like? So right now, if I chose 6, we would be in groups of 7. And then Lumio would create 7 copies of the activity, and then it would put those teams into each activity. So instead of working individually, you'd be working with 7 other people or 6 other people. So group workspace is a really nice way to collaborate because you see with like 42 people, The whole class whiteboard can get really, really busy and hard to work in, whereas group workspace allows you to work with other people, but in a smaller number of people. You don't need to all sit at the same table. My students do group workspaces and they're working with students from all over the classroom and they're not even physically near them. However, you can let students move and work all together as well to encourage that like real collaboration, oral language development, and social skills. And then last, oh, so we're actually going to try the group workspace just for fun. So this is just a pre-made template from the graphic organizers in Lumio. And you'll be able to see how many teams would I like. So I'm just going to say, let's do 8 teams. And now watch, all of your names are flying onto the different teams. And if I worry that someone doesn't get along with someone else, I can move them to a different team, which is really cool. So you can actually manipulate the teams on your end and then click Start Workspace. So all of you are going to go into a group workspace. We see our groups right here on my end. And then I've given you a prompt. So I'm able to click on all of the different team workspaces and see what's happening. So right now I've just put technology tools or platforms I currently use. And I'm just curious to know what people are currently using. So let's just take a moment and experience the group workspace. And just know that I will be clicking on your group workspace to see what's going on. Okay, so I see team 5. Someone uses Google Classrooms. Team 7, someone uses Lumio, Wakelet, ThingLink, and Nearpod. Lumio Monster Games.
So here's a question for you, Devin. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it as if I don't have any reference for it. Will the groups that you made today, right here in this lesson, will they stay the same groups another day of using this session?
Um, of using the same session?
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know if I've ever revisited it after the day that we actually did it.
So I believe that it will reform the groups, but Nicole, if you have an answer for that, that'd be really good. Somebody liked that comment, so if any of you happen to know the answer to this, but if it's something that you want where those groups stay the same, again, that user voice link, I'll pop it in the chat again because product team is always listening to you guys specifically. Yeah, I'm with Nicole. I don't think they stay, which is so unfortunate if you wanted to come back to it on a different day.
Okay, everyone, thank you for sharing the tools and platforms that you currently use. This is great information and also gives you a chance to experience what being in a group workspace looks like. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next thing in the interest of time. Okay, and then whole class whiteboard. We already did a whole class whiteboard so that I could see what your teaching situation was like and what delivery methods you usually use. And this is just an example. So I did a whole class whiteboard in one of my university classes where students brainstormed ideas for how they would use these flannel and magnet sets for a variety of different books to teach background knowledge, language structure, vocabulary, and literacy knowledge. And you can see that one group finished early and used the Lumio drawing tools to create some really beautiful illustrations. So whole class whiteboard is where everyone is working together. Okay, graphic organizers. I didn't use graphic organizers a great deal with kindergarten children because we weren't really working with large amounts of text or information to organize. If I used a graphic organizer, it was generally whole class. I find at the university level, I'm using graphic organizers all the time because we work with a lot of content. So if you click the plus button in Lumio when you're starting a new to make a new learning activity, click on graphic organizers. There is an amazing variety of graphic organizers. So these are some of the ones that I've used. So I've set these up as individual handouts because students are working on them individually, but I also could set these up as a group workspace or as a whole class whiteboard. So this is the Frayer model where there's the four guiding principles and the big idea in the middle. So this is one that's pre-made in Lumio for you. There's also a describing wheel. So in Manitoba, we're working with 6 global competencies that kind of overlay all of our new curriculum documents. So we were looking at those 6 global competencies and we used the describing wheel for that. Again, that was an individual handout. Then I also use Lumio for students to reflect on their learning and for me to gain insights from those reflections. And of course, Shout It Out is one of my favorite ways for students to reflect on their learning. So one day we did a walking podcast where we listened to a podcast about reading instruction while we walked around the campus independently or with our friends. And then we all met on the front lawn of the university and did inside outside circle to debrief on the content of the podcast. So I always like to talk about like what did you think about the strategy we used to engage with the content? And then we also talk about the content. So I use Shout It Out for that. Walking podcast, what I liked about it. Walking podcast, how I could use it. Inside outside circle, what I liked about it. Inside outside circle, how I could use it. And Shout It Out worked really well for students to reflect on their learning. Lumio has many pre-made questioning and reflection templates for you. Like there's plus, minus, interesting, 3 facts, 2 questions, 1 opinion, summarize what you've learned, exit tickets, a 1-minute paper. So there's many pre-made templates you can use for questioning and reflection and just customize them accordingly. Okay, we're going to do a Shout It Out together. And I set this up with 2 columns. And in the first column, a challenge in my practice Lumio could solve. And the second column, I'm interested in crime. So what are you interested in trying after today's session? And I think I've set this up anonymously, so I don't believe your names will pop up. And what I'm able
Okay.
to do as the responses come in is I can click on them and then I can just scroll through them, which is really nice.
I'm going through the questions, Devin, as you are waiting on our attendees to fill out their answers, just kind of checking through. A couple of people have wondered, so this would be great to really just hear from your perspective. Do you experience any drawbacks? For example, Kaylin shared that animations on a PowerPoint or slides won't come over when you import them into Lumio. Are
Mm.
there any downsides that you have experienced, maybe that other people will relate to, or do you feel like Lumio has very limited downsides and the positives far outweigh that? What is your experience?
I would say there's very limited downsides and the positives far outweigh that. Um, my main issue with Lumio is like when my students have done something asynchronously and I'm reviewing their responses later, there's no way for me to comment back to them within Lumio.
Mhm.
So like when I'm reading like a student's work in Lumio, there's no way that I can leave them a comment back and then they know that I commented back. So just that way for me to engage with my learners within the Lumio platform rather than having to like comment on their work in a different way. I do use Lumio in conjunction with Seesaw. So I'm always like posting Lumio links in Seesaw for my students to
Mhm.
access. So then I will just go back and comment
Mhm.
in Seesaw, but I really wish I could comment right in there.
That
That
was
would
gonna
just
be
be
my
my downside.
solution, right? If you are using a learning management system, it's so easy to pop that link into an activity, a project, a lesson, assignment, so that you can do the feedback piece. But I have added it as a wish so that I can share that with our team as well.
Looks like some of the challenges that people are sharing are very similar to what I described, like getting my learners to be brave enough to contribute to the activity, engaging students more during our asynchronous components, allowing teachers to better manage their lesson resources. You shout it out in the way presented, AI assist, increasing engagement with practice for asynchronous learners. I teach online asynchronous only. And you see, since I set this up as anonymous, normally your name would be there. Right now, it's just a dot. Teaching the kids to use technology responsibly. Well, Lumio has solved all my teaching problems, only one tool missing, interactive videos. More ways to create presentations from scratch. I wish there were grid lines, student engagement, preparation time and amount of resources available in class. And then just let's look at some of the ones from I'm interested in trying, shout it out, you'll love it. All of it using AI to create lessons, Lumio's AI features, AI produced content, group workspace. I love group workspace, pre-made templates, exit tickets, get teachers to use Lumio more. Yeah, that can be a challenge. I think people think that they already have all the tools to do what you're describing, but they don't realize that Lumio brings all of those tools together in one place and makes it so much easier. Okay, I will go through all of these after the session, which I'm able to do. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. And I'll definitely share this with Tisha too. Okay, so I wanted to share with you what my learners say about Lumio. So last week, before we went on fall study break, I just put up a shout it out and I said to my students, this is not mandatory at all. I'm making this anonymous, so I don't know who said what, but I would like you to tell me what you like about Lumio as a student, and then what you like about Lumio as a future teacher. And almost all of my students responded, which I really very much appreciated, even though it was not mandatory. And here is what they said. As a university student, it's interactive and helps keep me involved with the lesson. Most university classes aren't as interactive. Lumio is a great teaching tool that engages students, incorporating student input, activities, and fun games while still learning. As a university student, I found Lumio to be incredibly engaging and a user-friendly tool for learning. So I won't read through all of these. They're up on the screen if you'd like to read them. But the students really commented to me. They appreciate how interactive classes are, and it stops them from being bored because they always get to do something interactive every few slides rather than just sitting there. And then as future teachers, they shared their thoughts on Lumio with me as well. And this easy to monitor progress, even when you were out of the room, that happened after our incident. So they definitely, that stuck with them, that's for sure.
I was going to say this is a great opportunity to do a like a screenshot, or take a picture with your phone and share this out to social, and make sure you're using the hashtag #GoLumio. Make sure you're tagging Devin or tagging me. We would love for you to share these sentiments. I've also dropped Devin's Lumio teacher share link in the chat in case you want to go back and look at these pieces, these slides, these sentiments again, in a different way. And I've also added in becoming an ambassador. We want you to join the ambassador group. That is what this session is all about. We are doing ambassador-led sessions. November is all about Devin. Next month, we'll have December's, and you can join Ashley Martinez. We also want you to be part of our Facebook group. I know, Devin, you are part of that Facebook group. I believe you are. And if you want to become part of that Facebook group, we want any of you to join. Make sure you're answering those questions so that we can approve you. And then I've also added those YouTube links as well.
Okay, our time together is coming to an end. I have one final shout it out. Ask me some questions about using Lumio in your teacher practice. Many people have been asking throughout the session, and we've been answering the questions as we've gone. What is the easiest thing to start with? Well, a shout it out's a really easy thing to start with. You just put in your prompt and shout it out, and you decide if your students are going to contribute with text or with images, how many responses they get to make, and then your students just join through lumioclass.com and the code, or else they scan with their tablets and they're in. So the shout it out is a great thing to start with that you can use for so many different purposes. Tisha, what would be your perspective on that?
Ask me the question again, Devin. See, this is where my neurodivergence just came in, and you're
Uh-huh.
you're my professor. I was answering Karen because I was
Uh,
sympathizing with the easiest thing to start with in Lumio. I'm gonna say I'll just tell you my experience. So I worked at Wakelet before I started working at Smart and Lumio, and one of the things I loved about Lumio is the ability to do app smashing. And so what I would say to new users is I would say to you, what are you using now? So really in reflection to Devin's question earlier, what other tech tools are you using? And then taking those tools and some existing lessons and thinking, okay, how is Lumio going to help me? So for me, as a secondary teacher, which I was empathizing with Karen on 9 through 12 students, I would probably start with the shout it out or the individual handout, because I was finding that my students, and I'm sure you all know this, they love to copy each other. And so sometimes it was hard to get them to do their own critical thinking on a topic or on a question. And so that's how I would utilize it. So maybe the shout it out when they came into the room as a pre-lesson question, and then maybe the individual handout either at the end of the lesson or even the next day. So for me, those are two really easy ways to do things. But you could also just make it a lot of fun, right? Like with a whole class whiteboard. Don't give them something that is so serious or lesson related. Maybe just ask them something that would tell you more about them as a person. So one of the things I love to do, Devin knows this because she was on a call with me, but I would ask them really crazy questions to see where their thinking was. One of the questions I love doing with my students was, what if you had one walk-up song that had to play for the rest of your life every time you entered the classroom or any room for that matter, what would your song be? And when students would put their songs on there, it would tell me so much kind of what headspace they were in and what their personality was like. So that would be a whole class whiteboard instance. But I think and you'll all agree, Devin, I know you'll agree with this. As a teacher, any tool that I could use, any feature within a tool where it is a one click for me, the one click to get a really huge return on investment for my students was always something that pulled me in. So I think I've overly probably answered your question. Again, there's my neurodivergence peeking out. What else is that? Are we at the end, Evan? Because we were having a lot of fun.
We are at the end. There's a few questions on the shout it out. How can I create activities and monitor student responses and give feedback? Like I'm thinking that must be Nearpod.
Nearpod. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So creating activities, that is really simple and straightforward to do. If you're not sure how to do it, there's fantastic tutorials on the Lumio channel. I'd highly recommend checking those out. If you just find Lumio on YouTube, they have a getting started. I have my university students do all of that, and it walks you through in just like 90-second videos how to create activities. Monitoring student responses, that's what you're doing on your end while students are engaged in like individual handouts, group workspaces, whole class whiteboards. Or if it was something that was asynchronously, those results you would then check after in your class sessions. And as we discussed, we really can't give feedback within Lumio yet, right, Tisha?
That's right. Yet. I always like that you've added the word yet, because I've shared the user voice link several times. And it is because I want you all to just take a minute. And I want you to know Joe on the product team is always looking at this. And he and I talk a lot about it. But as ambassadors, as community members, we want to hear your feedback. And I am a huge advocate for student feedback in the moment for students to go back. So I think it would be really beneficial. So if there's something you're seeing from other platforms that we don't have, go pop that in. For the moment, like Devin said, I would use your learning management system if that is something that you have already in place. It's a great way to go back and kind of document that for now.
How could we add customizable tags to code errors? Will GIFs ever be suitable as images to add to the canvas? I guess what you could do is you could create basically anything you wanted and then just copy and paste them onto slides and infinite clone them. What do you think about that, Tisha?
Yeah, I love GIFs, and I also love that some people are going to say, "No, Tisha, it's a GIF," and that's also fine.
Yeah, I
Um,
never know what way to say it.
Absolutely. I'm gonna say a GIF, but the customizable tags to code errors. Again, I think putting in that user voice, and the more information that you can give, the better. So when I say that, if there isn't a spot on that customer voice link that I've shared with you in the chat, you can always do a screen recording and you can email it directly to me. I will get it to the right people. I completely understand I used to use GIFs in my classroom for teaching, so I completely understand where this comment is coming from. Again, there are certain things that aren't there yet, but again, your voices are really loud, so keep asking for them. Oh, how can you get a cute shirt? Okay, I don't know who posted this, but if you're in the chat, I love that you asked about this, and I do have a little stash. If you're an ambassador, if you present in an ambassador-led session like Devin, you will get something similar to this shirt, if not this exact shirt. And I also want you to know that right now, as ambassadors, we are working on really a rebrand, a relaunch, where we're going to be doing some fun new things. So be looking at the platform, looking at the Facebook group, and also maybe a new logo is in the works also. So I've been working behind the scenes. And so if you haven't seen me on social or out and about, it's because we're getting some cool things in place for all of you. Okay, Devin, I think this is your question.
I would love to see examples of specific uses in asynchronous and synchronous in-person setting to gain insight into the best uses. Thanks. I actually find that kind of hard to separate because generally when I do synchronously, I do something pretty similar asynchronously. However, with asynchronously, I'm not doing group workspace because group workspace doesn't work asynchronously. I'm generally just doing individual handouts in an asynchronous environment. And I haven't tried a whole class whiteboard asynchronously. Would a whole class whiteboard work asynchronously, Tisha? Do you know?
That is a good question. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to come back to all of you. We will answer that for you. And whoever this person was specifically, you guys can email me this, and I will get you an answer, and I will come back to it for our December webinar so that we can get some of these answered. All of your
Then I think
presentations have to be branded. Can you still use Lumio and the interactive tool?
like it has to be branded. I would create my slides in PowerPoint
Mhm.
or Canva or wherever the branding
Mhm.
is, and then I would just export them to Lumio and add in the interactivity, and your slides would still
Yes,
be branded that way.
100%, 100%.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I would say.
I'm seeing, so yes, if you are an ambassador and you want to do what Devin is doing right now, which is an ambassador-led session, all about you, letting you lead the session, and getting some really cool swag and rewards. If that's you, definitely reach out to me. You can email me. I'll put my email again in the chat. Devin, I'm going to go ahead and also post the survey link. I know some have dropped off, but I want to make sure that you all have the survey link to get your certificate. So let me pop that in the chat as well. And then I want to make sure that you have Devin's teacher share link. So I'm going to be adding that. And my guess, Devin, is we may have some non-ambassadors and you may want to become an ambassador. We would love to have you. So I'm going to pop that link next. What have I forgotten, Devin? Have I forgotten anything for our attendees today? It's so possible.
That's everything. And I just encourage you to connect with us on social media, whether it's like Lumio
Yes.
Social or connect with me,
Yes.
ageducation.ca or India0309.
Yes.
I love connecting with teachers on my socials. So please
Devin
reach out.
is really, she's on Instagram. You want to follow her, follow along with her. I am at Tisha Poncio on all social medias, including LinkedIn. I'm also on Blue Sky, which Devin, I haven't seen a lot of people on Blue Sky, but love to see that
Mhm.
you're there. We would love to connect with you and build community. And again, be watching the Community Hub if you are an ambassador, because I'm working on some rebranding. We're going to get some slow chats going in there and really connect with each other. If you're still here, I know there are 58 of you still watching. Thank you so much for staying with us for a whole hour plus. We know your time is valuable. If you would love to connect and you want to share your own social media handle in the chat before we end this live stream. Please do that now, because I think so many of you out there would benefit from connecting with each other, sharing what you've learned over the course of years, and also asking questions. Let's see. I'm going to add what am I going to add, Devin? I think I've added everything. I'm going to add the YouTube channels, because Devin did mention, I knew I forgot something. Devin did mention on YouTube, there is a Getting Started with Lumio. So I'm going to pop the links there. So that you can go find those videos. Those are great places to start. But you, again, can reach out to us and DM us on Instagram or email us as well. Devin, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining on your trip, and just really am excited for all of your shares, and so thankful to have you as a Lumio ambassador. So we appreciate your time. Again, your time is also valuable. Any last words for our attendees before we end the stream?
I just like to say thanks so much for the opportunity, Tisha. It's always so much fun to share my classroom practice and what I'm doing. And just thank you for all the amazing engagement in the chat and in the activities that we did within Lumio. It was just so nice hearing everyone's questions and just seeing how engaged and interested you are, and just learning from you as well. So thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. You guys were incredible. We couldn't do this without you. So be watching for next month. Ashley Martinez will be presenting. We'll have some more international ambassadors sharing in the new year. We're so excited to hang out with you every month. So we'll see you again very soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.